Oh my gosh, that's a freaking big one, dude. Oh my gosh, you got me tangled up in that grass. Oh God, come on. Oh my gosh. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Today, I'm bringing you one that I definitely know you're gonna wanna see. We're out here hunting for big ones, flipping big weights in the grass and trying to catch that mega bass. But hey guys, if you haven't yet, go drop in that right hand corner and go and hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. Drop a comment. Maybe what is your favorite flipping bait? Drop that comment below. I want to know what you like to flip, because hey, we all learn from each other, right? But if you drop me a comment and you say a bait I need to try, I'll absolutely go try it out. Y'all stay tuned right after this for a great instructional fishing video on how to catch more bass out of super heavy cover. Look at him, he's coming right to the troll motor. Alright guys, today we are on Choke Canyon Reservoir in South Texas, just about an hour south of San Antonio. This place is loaded with big bass. You know, one thing that I've learned though, over the time that we've been fishing, is we travel all over the country to fish, and I promise you, every one of you have dealt with this. You get a phone call a couple weeks before you get there and you're like, oh my God, the fishing is so great, you need to get down here. When we come down here, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks later, the fishing has all changed. And that's exactly what's happened today and this week that we've been filming here on Choke Canyon. But that's okay. That is just one of those obstacles that you're gonna deal with anytime you're bass fishing. And that's why you watch my videos. I can promise you that, because I'm gonna tell you how to make the adjustments to catch them. One thing about Choke Canyon right now is that it has a ton of coots right now. So the coots are tearing up the grass, they're messing it up. You're gonna see a lot of floating hydrilla around, creating these little trash mats. What we call trash mats is any floating debris. Sometimes it's hydrilla, sometimes it's milfoil, sometimes it's hyacinth, and it's all mixed together in one pile. Well, that's what these fish are kind of sitting under, right up next to timber. And that is a big key, is whenever you can figure out when you're mixing two types of cover together, it's always a winning situation, because you can really pick apart your cover and know exactly what you're looking for. So when I'm flipping grass though, guys, you know, there's a ton of different grass out there. You can have milfoil, you can have hydrilla, you can have hyacinth, you flip lily pads that are all bunched up. All of it includes flipping. You know, today we're flipping hydrilla and scattered trash mats of hydrilla that have been chopped up either by boats or by coots. And the way we're targeting them is we're trying to flip up in the juice. I want to flip right in the middle of that cover, because that bass is sitting right underneath. When I told you that, you know, the fishing has changed, one thing that they were doing when they were catching them here is they were throwing a ton of moving baits, chatter baits, rattle traps, swim jigs, all these baits. Well, when everybody started fishing, the grass started changing, the water got warmer, the fish changed. One thing I've always known, whenever it starts getting hot and the fishing pressure gets really bad on the body of water that you are, the fish want to tuck up under and behind everything that they can get their hands on. They're going to swim up in trees, in the middle of grass beds, everywhere. So targeting these fish is sometimes a bit difficult. You got to have heavier duty gear. You got to have stuff that's definitely going to be able to get them out of that cover. And that's when I turn to a big stick. You know, I can sit there and product push all this stuff to you and tell you, buy this, buy this, buy this. Guys, at the end of the day, if you get you a 7.5 to 8 foot flipping stick, heavy action, you're probably gonna be just fine. The one I use is a SuperDuty speed stick. I just got these the other day and I wanted to torture test them, and I'm telling you right now, I've torture tested them. It's a 711 heavy. We make an extra heavy, but it's just a bit too heavy, guys. You wanna go with that heavy action. It's a bit more parabolic. And when you hook that real big one in the middle of a mat, definitely gonna be able to get it out. The reel that I fished with this week has been the new Team Loose Pro SP. If you watched my video before on the review of the Team Loose Pro SP, which is a skipping and pitching reel, which I'm gonna drop the link right here so you can watch it if you like. But if you watch that video, I told you I'm gonna come out here and test it. Well, so far I've caught about 5 fish over 5 pounds and a couple in the 4 pound range. And guys, it's everything I want it to be. It's strong. It doesn't hold a ton of line. Smooth. Absolutely passes my test. I will have this thing on my deck a lot of times. And so we've talked about rod, we talked about reel, line. You know, I'm differ from a lot of flippers. You look at guys like Bradley Hallman, Scott Martin. They're flipping the big line, 65-pound test, 80-pound test. I don't go that heavy. I personally like to flip 50. I flip that tour grade braid green. But I like 50. It seems to cut through the grass better, and I really don't break them off. I mean, now if I'm flipping like super thick hyacinth or something like that, I will go to like 65 or 80. But the need is not really there for me. But I also don't fish heavy covered 24/7 like some of those guys, and they probably experienced some situations where if they hadn't had 80-pound braid, they weren't getting that fish out of that cover, and I completely understand that. And that's one reason you should watch guys like Scott Martin and Bradley Hallman, is because they're like flipper extraordinaires. I can promise you that. But the one other thing that we don't talk about very much, and pros definitely don't want you to know about, is bait selection and why they pick which bait, whether it's for its action or what. So I basically flip 3 baits, and a couple of them are Strike King baits, and one of them's not a Strike King bait, believe it or not. So one of the very first baits that I flip is the punch bug. The punch bug is about 3.5 to 4 inches long. It's a really thick bait. It has those patented rage crawl legs. It actually to put it into perspective for you, it reminds me of a speed crawl. If you've ever fished a speed crawl, it reminds me of that, but a beefier body. So your hook's not gonna tear through it super easy. It's gonna get in and out of the cover. You're gonna get multiple catches on one bait, which I love that. And it comes in all the best flipping colors: black, blue, Okeechobee crawl, green pumpkin, black, blue flash. I mean, it is absolutely my favorite right now for flipping. It's compact and it catches big ones, guys. I mean, absolutely catches big ones. So I like this one when I want more action. So you ask me, okay, wait a minute. You're jumping into something here. You're talking about action on your bait under a mat with a 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce weight. Guys, it makes a difference. When you're flipping heavy cover, you have to pay attention to the action of your bait. So the first thing that I start off with is the more aggressive bait, which would be the punch bug. It has a lot more aggressive crawls. I mean, they're flapping really hard under the water. The next bait I turn to, if they're not quite on that one, and one way that you're gonna know if they're on it is when you flip that bait in there, and if they eat it on the drop, you're flipping the right weight size and the right bait. So you're flipping the right action and everything. So if they're eating it as soon as it busts through that mat, you're flipping the right thing. Don't change anything, just keep doing what you're doing. One other bait, whenever I feel like the action's just too much, is I turn to a rage bug. Rage bug's more the flat profile, just like this, and the action on the back end of the rage bug is a lot more subtle. So if I want to flip something that is more subtle but still has some action to it, this is the one I'm turning to. Obviously, I'm not punching with white often. I do punch with white now. I absolutely punch with white. And any guys that tell you they don't, they're lying to you. White is a phenomenal punching color. But we'll get into that in another video. But the rage bug is absolutely one of my favorite punching baits that there is. I just love the action to it. Your hookup ratio is really good. I mean, it's a super thin bait. The only problem is you're probably going to catch 1 fish per bait. And that's just the name of the game. When you start talking really thin baits like this, you're going to lose a lot of baits, but you're going to catch a lot of bass too. The last bait is not a Strike King bait. It absolutely is not. But it's one that I absolutely turn to in situations where I feel like a lot of people are flipping, or I want a bait that doesn't have as much action. I want it to have that glide, that fall, that just waving action, that supernatural action to a bait. And I think it makes a huge difference. And that is the BFE that Bradley Hallman, my buddy Bradley Hallman, designed. I'm telling you guys right now, the BFE is the real deal. It's got that round body, really similar to the punch bug. If you look at them, the body sizes are very, very similar, which is a big key to me. I love having that thicker body. I feel like you can get more catches per bait, and I think that's extremely important when you start talking about flipping heavy cover, is you want to be able to get more flips without having an obstruction of grass. The BFE comes in a lot of colors. This one is one of my favorites. Dude, it looks phenomenal. But the thing about the BFE, when you're flipping it in and around and you hop that thing up, it just has a natural waving action through the water. Guys, these 3 baits right here will get you all the fish that you need to catch anytime you're flipping heavy cover. Now, we've talked about your bait, we've talked about your line, we've talked about your rod and your reel. One thing we haven't talked about is the weight. The weight is very important. I mentioned earlier that whenever you're flipping and the bass eat it, as soon as it busts through the mat, you're flipping the exact right weight. Don't adjust it. One thing I've learned over the years, and sometimes you have to adjust it based on your situation, but if they're not eating it as soon as it busts through and you're having to hop it 4 or 5 times, you need to try adjusting your weight. Maybe you go a little bit lighter, maybe you go a little bit heavier. In the case of what I like to do, if it's really hot outside or going into the fall, I go heavier. If it's really cold, I go lighter. The lighter you go in the early spring, I really feel like that gives the bait a little bit more natural approach coming through the water. The fish are a bit more lethargic. They're not as much reaction oriented. They're just trying to eat. And they're not trying to chase anything too fast. So the lighter the weight, the better. Like I said, as the season goes on, as it gets hotter, I'll go to 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce weight sometimes to get through those mats to create that reaction strike. Because at the end of the day, guys, if I can flip in there, and I know without a doubt that 90% of my bites are coming on the drop, I can flip, let it drop, hop it once, hop it twice, reel it in, make another flip. And I can keep this process going and cover way more water. Now, if I'm having to flip in there and hop it 5 or 6 or 7 times, I'm wasting a lot more time. I'm having to fish way slower. I'm having to cover a lot less water. When I look at flipping, I look at efficiency. I want it to be as efficient as possible. That's one of the reasons you want a bait that can last on your hook, because you're making thousands of flips in the day. I don't want to have to keep changing baits because they're hanging on grass and pulling the bait down. I want a bait that can withstand the test of time, and that's exactly what I want. So I'm gonna give you a little demonstration of what I look for when I'm flipping, and we'll show you a little bit of what you can do when you're trying to find them in that thick grass. All right, guys, I'm gonna show you the ins and outs of how to be a better flipper. One thing that I do, and this is actually what you consider pitching, is I'm going to take the bait and I'm going to make it even or just maybe just slightly above my reel here. I'm going to take the weight. I don't want to touch the bait when I'm flipping because I don't want to get oils off my hands. I don't want to ruin the scent of the bait. And I'm going to flip like that. And I'm actually, this is something I learned from Greg Hackney. And you act like people don't watch other people. Dude, I watch Greg Hackney. He's one of the best flippers in the world. And this is one thing that I learned from him. So I grab my weight, I flip it, and I throw a lot of slack in my line. So my line is falling, and whenever it goes slack, I know it's hit the bottom. So if I'm in 8 foot of water, I know that that bait has fallen 8 foot. Now, if it only falls 4 foot, I better get ready to set the hook because one's probably grabbed it on the way down. One thing you'll actually realize whenever you're flipping like that is that you don't always have to grab your bait. If you notice, sometimes I just kind of swing it. That way I'm not having to touch my weight, touch my bait all the time. Because you really don't want to have to touch it if you don't have to. I think it makes a world of difference not touching it. But one thing I really like to do is flip these little points, these little turns in these grass mats. That's a big key for finding these fish. And once you figure out what they're on, if they're on the points, if they're on the turns, a lot of times that's where they're gonna be. One other thing I look in grass, especially grass that's growing up, making a mat like this is here, is I want a hard edge. You know, for the longest of times, I didn't really know what a hard edge was. I felt like, you know, you'd hear guys talk about it, and you'd see one every once in a while, and then it would be kind of tapered. But a hard edge is exactly that. It looks like a wall. It looks like it throws a shadow on the edge of the grass. And guys, believe it or not, you want that shadow, you want that shade. Those fish feel more protected sucking up under that mat if there's more shade to it. And that's a big key, is looking for those little shade pockets. Well, here on Choke Canyon, one of the big keys that we figured out is finding a mix between big trees and grass. It doesn't matter if it's a blown in mat, a grown up mat, as long as it has a mat and a tree, you've got a really legit chance of catching a bass, and typically a big one. And that's what makes flipping so fantastic. Oh my gosh, that's a freaking big one, dude. Oh my gosh, you got me tangled up in that grass. Oh god, come on. Oh my gosh. How big is this fish? Oh god. Please be a double digit. Oh god, okay. Got her. Oh, come on. There we go. She ain't a double digit, but she's a nice one though. Woo! She had a mouthful of grass, didn't she? Good Lord. That was the bite I was looking for, guys. What a nice bass. Choke Canyon is full of these bass. And one thing about it, when you're punching that heavy vegetation, if you follow the little simple things that I told you about, you're gonna find out how to catch more of these really nice ones flipping that heavy cover. If you get a chance, guys, drop a like on this video if you liked it. Like I said before, drop me a comment of your favorite flipping bait. And subscribe if you haven't already. New fishing video coming out here in just a couple of days. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And thank you for watching Andrew Upshaw Fishing. See you later, guys. Same spot.